afternoon, everyone, and welcome to What the Why with Barbara Ann. If you haven't seen us before, our show features conversations with diverse leaders from all walks of life about why they do what they do and how they figured things out. Maybe you're sick and tired of feeling sick and tired, or you feel stuck and you want to get unstuck in your business, job, or life. All of our guests have something in common with you. At some point in their lives, they felt similarly. However, today we're doing something a little bit different. Your featured guest, if you can call me that, is me, Barbara Ann, with some help from recent guest Sarai Romero, who is the Civility, Inclusion, Equity, and Diversity Training Consultant with my company, Purpose-Filled Solutions and Evolutions. So, who am I? Like many people, I'm a multifaceted person with many sides. The one that Sarai and I will talk with you about today is a very personal one that I have touched on in past episodes, but not directly addressed. I am one of the many people who live with a hidden disability, and I'm going to be actually presenting to you a training presentation that Sarai and I have done on this topic. So if we could have our first two pictures up for hidden disabilities, the topic. So, as brought to you by Purpose-Filled Solutions and Evolutions. Hidden disabilities, slide 2. At least 1 in 10 people in the United States lives with a hidden disability. So what exactly is that? You might be surprised to know how many people you interact with on a daily basis have a disability that is not visible or easily detected. In addition to neurodiversity, some people have physical disabilities that affect mobility, sensory capabilities, impacts of disease, progression of disabling conditions that are not yet visible, etc. And we can bring it back to me for now. The newest one is long COVID, also known as PASC, or post-acute sequelae of COVID, something that I've openly mentioned that I have, but that's only just one of my challenges. It is estimated that anywhere in 1 in 8 to 1 in 4 people will develop permanent conditions as a result of having been exposed or dealt with COVID or long COVID. But even before COVID, it was estimated that at least 1 in 10 people lives with 1 or more hidden disabilities. And I actually believe that number is much higher. So if we could have slide 3. We're going to introduce you to the two sides of Barbara Ann. On the one hand, I help companies and individuals who want to grow and evolve to navigate real and perceived challenges, refocus their core purpose, identify resources, and implement plans to achieve their visions of success. Building on more than, it says 2 decades, but let's be honest, it's been more than 3 decades of experience forming partnerships to help communities experiencing disinvestment and business owners and individuals from underrepresented groups or overcome challenges and thrive. I lead an amazing team at Purpose-Filled Solutions and Evolutions, a coaching and consulting firm. In addition to that, I serve as Director of Compliance and Engagement for CBAC in Camden, New Jersey, which works with small businesses. I host this show with the Y here at RVN Television, and I have many initials behind my name and hold multiple degrees and certifications, including an MS, or Master's of Science in Executive Leadership, a Bachelor of Arts in Political Science honors. I'm a coach. Specifically, I'm a professional certified coach and member of the International Coaching Federation, a certified professional, CPC, certified professional coach in executive coaching. And I'm a member of the Association for Talent Development and many other organizations. I do serve on the Long COVID Alliance, which was started out as a national organization and now is an international reach, and the COVID-19 Long Hauler Advocacy Project. I've won awards, as many of our guests have. I was the National Association of Women's Business Owners of South Jersey's 2016 Women's Advocate of the Year, and other recognitions at the team level and even organizational level. And if you've seen my first season or seen other shows, you also know that martial arts is a huge part of my life. In fact, I'm a 2nd-degree black belt in traditional Okinawan Goju-Ryu Kenshikai Karate Jiu-Jitsu Kobo Jutsu. and I study other forms as well. But there's another side. So let's look at number 4 and figure out who I am, or who am I, to speak on hidden disabilities. Well, even before COVID, I'm someone who lives with spinal damage that was caused by a physical assault in 2006 that took place on the job, which is one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about the work that we do with in inclusion and diversity. I do have long COVID, which I've already talked about, but I've had other issues over the year. I'm a rape survivor from when I was in my late teens and early 20s. I have very severe allergies that significantly limit what I can eat. My body size goes up and down as the medications change. I've faced systemic discrimination because of being a biracial Black female, and so much more when you add on top of it the hidden disabilities that I have, and people don't understand that there's more in my story than what they see. I learned to thrive beyond my early childhood introversion and OCD, obsessive compulsion, and I am a living example of intersectionality and what I like to call the accidental super token. And you can come back to me, because the reality is that with all of these different things that make up who I am, if an employer is looking to check the box, they hit the jackpot when it comes to me in terms of all of the different boxes they can check for diversity. But I'm also an expert. As someone with a minimum of 10,000 hours of experience in a field or area, that classifies me as an expert. And I have over 30 years of experience implementing related initiatives that make me an expert in civility, inclusion, equity, and diversity, on top of having experienced what I experienced. In addition to that, I mentioned my coaching experience, but some of my coaching also includes a trauma-informed approach. And as you heard from one of our recent guests, I was serious when I said I was going to take up brain story training certification, and I have. So that, combined with all of my years of working with so many diverse populations and so many different communities, has put me on a path that's helped me tell my story so that others can feel comfortable with telling theirs. Now, slight disclaimer. I do not and cannot possibly know everything there is to know about hidden disabilities, or anything for that matter. Yeah, I'm an expert, but like everyone else, I'm an imperfect person. I'm a forever student on a journey of learning and growth, and today I'm sharing about what I've learned personally through research and study and pursuing degrees and certifications about hidden disabilities from both the professional and personal aspect. So let's jump to our next slide, because let's see. These are just some pictorial representations of who I am. On your right side, you'll see pictures of me both in the dojo, carrying heavy weights, receiving awards for my employer, CBAC, which has been consistently one of the top microlenders in the country. The bowling alley isn't just any bowling, that's me at the White House bowling as part of an award I received for working on a White House project. And yes, that is me cutting a sword and me receiving an award. But on the left side, you also see me in the hospital, me with my long COVID banner that I have on my Facebook page, me at the White House, but in full-length knee braces on both knees because of injuries that I sustained, in part due to my spine being weak, and it aggravated my knees, and me having just a really, really rough day where I couldn't get up. And I like to say every morning, and you can come back to me, every morning that I get up is a blessing. And for some people, they say that as a term, but for me, that's a reality. So let's move to the next picture. So, in spite of all of these things, myself and so many others, because we don't always, quote, look sick, often are greeted with what we call microaggressions. It's a term that's become increasingly popular, and quite frankly, there's not really anything micro about microaggressions. Could you put up the list of the various types of microaggressions that we face on any given day? You don't look sick. You should be happy you don't have cancer. Are you still sick? You need to get better. Some of my favorites: do more yoga, eat gluten-free. By the way, I actually already have to eat gluten-free. You shouldn't be parking in the handicap parking space. Actually, one time somebody tried to throw me out of a disabled fitting room, even though I actually was on crutches because I managed to hobble my way to a particular rack to get something. Some of the things that happen at work: well, everybody gets tired. Another one: wow, you've gained weight. That's a great one because so many people with hidden disabilities are on different types of medications that can either cause them to lose or gain weight. My weight has fluctuated as much as 80 pounds with doing nothing other than medication changes. So we can come back to me. So there's so much more to this conversation, and believe it or not, it's already time for a break. When we come back, Sarai is going to be joining me to ask me some of the questions that I've been asked while presenting about hidden disabilities, as well as what people can do when you learn about them, because there's things that you can do that can really change the lives of those with whom you interact who are dealing with some form of hidden disability. So we'll be right back after this brief commercial break. Welcome back to What the Why with Barbara Ann, and today's very unique conversation with me and soon to be joining me, team member Sarai Romero, who is the Civility, Inclusion, Equity, and Diversity Consultant for our company, Purpose-Filled Solutions and Evolutions. And right before the break, we were talking about hidden disabilities. In fact, that I'm one of a minimum of 10 people in the world that deals with them. And what I've found is so many more have. And we were talking about some of the things that people say to people with hidden disabilities without being aware that it's a real thing. And hidden disabled individuals are not the only ones that experience microaggressions, but it's one of the more common ones because people still don't understand what it means to have a hidden disability. So we're going to bring Sarai back in. And as I mentioned, this class has been offered a couple times now, and she's going to actually ask me questions that people have asked of us when we've done this class in different forums. So Sarai, what's the first question you got for me?
All right. So I would like to know, why do you approach DEI in the workplace differently from others working in this space?
Okay, good question. So there's been a lot of talk over the years about what we know as DEI, or diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I've been working in this space since it was back when it was called affirmative action, and then kind of evolved into just diversity. And realistically, I hate to say it, but I'm old enough. When my parents married as a biracial couple, it was still actually illegal in some states for couples like them to even get married. And as a child, I was bused. I went to a high school that had segregated cafeterias. And it all seems so bizarre to say now, but that's the reality of the environment that I grew up in. Over the years, when I've been brought in to diversify different organizations, employers have brought me in specifically because that is a skill set I have. I've come to realize and see the difference between academic thought and practical application. And as DEI has continued to evolve over time, the biggest thing that I started noting about 8 years ago was we're doing it in the wrong order. Why are we hiring diverse candidates and bringing them into companies when the company isn't ready to hire them? And essentially setting them up to fail. And this really became evident after George Floyd in 2020. And companies rushed to check the box and prove that they were diverse, and they made all kinds of hiring decisions. Problem is, if you're approaching, and they hired diversity, equity, inclusion experts. fresh out of college in some instances, others like me who actually have long-term experience working in this space. And the problem is they brought them into environments that just weren't ready for them. What we do with Purposeful to ensure the success of everyone is we encourage companies to start with looking at the issues in their own company. We start with civility. I've worked in some really terrible environments, as I'm sure a lot of you can. Actually, in a director level role, I had someone refuse to take my resignation unless I went to marital counseling with them. That wasn't even my worst work experience. I actually still have a level of a relationship with that person. My worst physical work experience was truly being physically assaulted on the job by someone that I had at one point been peers with, then I was reporting to, then I moved into another role. And the only thing worse than being physically assaulted and left permanently partially disabled by that assault because of damage that was done to my spine was how the company handled things. It was a nightmare. My life was a nightmare. And even though in the state of New Jersey, employment disputes are settled by binding arbitration that is often paid for by the employer, in my case, the binding arbitrator actually ruled against the company in my favor. That's how egregious their behavior was in my case. So part of my strategy was realizing if we don't fix civility and we don't deal with equity and inclusion issues within an organization before we bring in diversity candidates, we are setting everyone up to fail. It's not going to work, and then everybody's just going to say, look, we tried. It failed just like we thought it would, moving on. So that's why we lead with civility, inclusion, equity, and diversity. So what do you got for me next, Sarai?
Yeah, so a little bit of follow-up on a little bit of what you answered. What happened to the person who assaulted you and to the company?
I actually had someone get really angry when I presented this a couple weeks ago. So the person who did this, nothing happened to them. They were put on a final warning. I would find that out years later, an immediate final warning. But they were not fired. They were not removed from their position. They continued to be in that role until the company shut down its New Jersey operations and outsourced that work. Fortunately, I'm not saying anything. I have no gag order because there was no settlement. They lost in arbitration, which was kind of funny because they actually tried to appeal their own binding arbitration, at which point they got a very scathing response from the arbitrator. Their New Jersey operations were shut down, not as a direct result of me, but due to a number of different reasons, and the work was outsourced to India as well as to another location here in the United States, and then moved again. But pretty much everybody involved in handling my case, at least at the New Jersey level, is no longer with that company. My son, however, for the longest time, he was so little when it happened, he told everybody that the person went to jail. And I just didn't have the heart to tell him because that's how he had to process the fact that somebody had hurt his mommy at work because he was afraid to have me go to work. So what's our next question?
All right. So following that, what was your recovery like from the assault?
Long, both mentally and physically. It was very long. Physically, because of the spinal damage that I experienced. I've had many different pain management procedures. I had disc replacement in my neck. I had a lot of swelling at first, so I couldn't walk until that swelling was reduced. And then there was the mental aspect. As you heard from what I do, I've been in vacant housing in areas that of some communities in Philly and Trenton and Camden and that the police won't even go into. I've been in those communities. One time when I was pregnant, I had to eject someone from my office because they were being rowdy. Never, ever in my life did I imagine that the most serious harm I would be in a corporate setting, in an off-site meeting with other leadership present at an all-day training event. Nor did I imagine that the company would decide that whether it was between me or the other person who did have a history of improper behavior, it was less expensive for them to try and get rid of me than it was to try and get rid of him. And so they tried to get rid of me. And a lot of things were done. Denial of reasonable accommodations against the law. Other things happened. And that all played into some serious trauma and put me on a journey of self-discovery and trying to find purpose and meaning in everything that had happened. It's not a coincidence that my company is called Purpose-Filled Solutions and Evolutions, because after reading books such as A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle, and then working with some amazing coaches, some really amazing coaches, and the one person at the company, my boss at the time, who stood behind me and up for me to her own peril, I couldn't, and my family support, my husband, who desperately wanted to take matters in his own hands, but had to stand back and not do that. I was able to find a journey where I was able to recognize that what had happened was what was done to my body, and that did not have to be the end of my story. It could also be the beginning of my story. And I could use that experience to help others. So hopefully that answered that question. So what have you got for me next, Sarai?
So following that, how have your challenges affected your family and your work, your daily life?
It's hard, even within my family. For some of them, I mentioned some of the microaggressions in terms of, well, you don't look sick, or, everybody's exhausted. There's some truth in that because now other members of my family are dealing with long COVID symptoms, but it's not the same, and I mentioned that there are days when it's hard to get up, but it's all about choice. And it's all about realizing that trauma is an active state. And our recent guest, Jan, mentioned this. What happened to me was an event. My response to it equals the outcome. And so what I've come to realize over time through study and training and modifications of what I like to do so that I can continue to do them, I realized that my life is on a much more positive trajectory. My life is going to help create change in others. And I don't know that that would have ever happened had that pivotal event not happened. This and many other things that I've experienced throughout my life help me have a better understanding of some of the experiences of the people that reach out to me for coaching and other assistance, because I've walked in similar shoes. No one's a monolith, and that's the last slide we're going to put up, if you could, gentlemen. Everybody that's going through something is going through something unique. And even if you have the same injury, everybody's going to respond to it differently because they're at some point, in a different point in their journey. So let's say now you run into me or you run into somebody else and you find out that they're dealing with something. People want to desperately help, but the best thing you can do, instead of reacting and trying to make changes for them or do something for them, it's not about you, it's about them. Something as simple as, how can I support you instead of let me help you, can be really great. Saying you understand, no one can possibly understand anybody's journey in any point in life. And this is one of the things we talk about in coaching all the time. So don't make assumptions about what other people's needs or wants are. People want to fix things. They want to solve things. They don't like to deal with problems. But when you try and do something for someone that may already be on their own journey of capabilities, you take away their power. And it's not your story to share. People will share if they want to share. It's not your place to tell someone's story about their cancer journey or their illnesses or their neurodiversity or whatever they're going through without their permission. So these are just some of the ways that you can be an ally to someone who is dealing with some type of a disability that you might not know of. And you can learn more online by checking out things like the Real ID Project and the Sunflower Lanyard Initiative. These are both things that are working to focus on the needs of people in the hidden disability community so that they can ask for assistance when they need it without directly stating it. So, believe it or not, that's our time. I know we usually present this in a much longer amount of time, but any closing thoughts on your part before I wrap this up, Sarai?
I just wanted to thank you for sharing your experience. I think it's very valuable, and very brave. So I just want to thank you for sharing that.
Thank you. And thank you so much for being here, for being a member of the team. We have an amazing team, and so much of what we're doing would not have been possible if Sarai wasn't a member of our team. So thank you. Regarding our upcoming episodes, we've got some really exciting guests lined up, but during the summer months, I stop announcing them because they do get kind of fluid. I will tell you that joining us next week will be Paula Galari. I'm butchering her name, and I've known her for years. Anyway, she's the owner of a microbrewery, and she's got a really fascinating story. And we have others lined up as well, and you really don't want to miss what any of our guests have to say about their journeys. You can also check out all of Season 1 and Season 2 to date at rvntelevision.com and on Roku, and where they're available on demand. You have so many viewing choices these days. Thank you very much for watching our show, and please tell a friend or colleague about us, especially about this episode in particular, as it's something that is part of a larger strategy that we focus on when we work with our clients, both individual and corporate. And please remember, no matter whether you're looking to make a change in your life, big or small, please join us again for more informative, informational, and illuminating conversations with leaders. Our episodes air at 1 p.m. on Tuesdays and Thursdays, Eastern Time, and 3:30 p.m. on Mondays, Eastern Daylight Time. So again, join us for more informative, inspirational, and illuminating conversations with leaders who overcame whatever fears or challenges they had to find their core purpose, move forward with intent and deliberation, and live their why.